why you can't trust beauty influencers. And I'm dipping myself into this as well. Just hear me out. I'm gonna start with the most obvious reasons. At the end, I'm gonna talk about some things that may surprise you. Alright, so let's start with the most obvious ones. Ads. In my opinion, influencers that are not too small or too big are the most dangerous in this category. Why? Because if you're super small, brands are not paying you to talk about their product, so you're excluded. But the big, very huge influencers, they're big enough so that they can choose with which brand they're gonna work with. That doesn't mean that because of that they're not gonna lie. I would just say, I know this is gonna be controversial, but it's just easier to be more honest with your viewers if you have enough money. Otherwise, if you're right in the middle, so you probably already quit your job, this is your only income, and then brand is gonna pay you to talk good things about a product. So if you're a good person, an honest person, but you need to earn to live and to continue growing your brand, then sometimes you may be in a really bad position where maybe you're gonna say some things that otherwise you wouldn't, or you would say it differently. Brands already try to prey on small creators, even if they're not paying them to influence them to talk in their words about the product. But if they are paying them, I pay you to say this and this and this. And if you don't have other deals, you're gonna do it, even if you want to be super honest and, as I said, truthful, and you're a good person, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. But of course, everywhere you have really spoiled human beings as well, and they just don't care. I'm not gonna talk about who I think they are, but you probably know. Okay, let's move on to the second reason. Brand ambassadors. Okay, so this one is also a little bit tricky one. You can be actually paid every month until you end your relationship with the brand. So you're kind of one of the faces of the brand, or you're not paid, but you're just getting their stuff. So every single release, you get their products. But usually, if you're a brand ambassador, and if you see someone to be a brand ambassador, then you know that probably when they talk about products, it's not necessarily being fully disclosed, especially if you're given stuff. If you're not paid for the stuff, then you don't need to actually check the box that this is an ad. So here is a little gray area there. When someone is a brand ambassador, usually they can only wear their stuff and not from other brands. And this is a very sensitive topic. So you don't need to be actually a brand ambassador for certain brands to ask you that. If you're dealing with some huge brand and they're paying you for certain ads, then they actually, in the contract, you can't talk about other brands in certain amount of time. For example, in 1 month, you can only talk about their products. It's a very shady area. If you think that I'm onto something, then please click the hype button if you have that option. It's only available on the phone for right now. And in that way, this video is going to be pushed a little bit further out so that others can see it too. I'm continuing with being invited to certain events. This is so tricky but this is a certain psychology underneath that. Because you are invited to certain events, they actually get a free ad out of it, because usually they create a big, very fancy, very colorful, very interesting event, and of course you're gonna use that for your content because something very interesting is happening to you. You're very excited to be invited that, but this is not their goodwill. Usually you get some stuff on that event, so a goodie bags, and I know this is a win-win situation, and usually you don't need to talk about this stuff. You're not obligated to talk about those products, how good they are. You learn things about that product, and then you actually explain the same things to your viewers, that they get their ads, an almost free ad. Of course, those events are very, very costly for them as well. But if it wouldn't be so profitable to do that, then they wouldn't do it, the last thing that is probably the most controversial here is getting a PR. And I'm already getting stuff for free. It's not all the time, it's not every month, but I get it. And I was thinking about this for quite a long time because it's an interesting one. Usually brands are super nice and they ask you if they can send some stuff to you. It happened for me, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 times that a brand wanted, as I said, like sentences. And if I wanted to have products, I would need to say this and this and this and show product like this and this and so on, so on. And especially when you're a small creator, then you're happy to get anything. You're super happy just to get some stuff for free, that you're already there on that, level. But most of the time, they just send some stuff to you and you don't need to. They don't say that you need to talk good about these products. But here is the thing. First of all, you know that if you're gonna say something bad, you won't get stuff anymore. So that's one thing. And then I had maybe like a certain dilemma within me because it's a super, super, super small brand. You know that they don't have money and that every single PR that they send, it's not like something that is very easily to afford for them. But at the same time, you don't like their products. You don't want to ruin them. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but if someone is trying to start a business, I don't want to destroy them with a bad review. So that's a moral dilemma here, but at the same time, you cannot say this is a good product because it's not. So what do you do then? And then the third one that is probably the most like hidden, I would say, reciprocity. When you get stuff, you're happy, you're glad that someone saw you and think of you for a PR package. And you're very grateful to them, to the brand, to those people who thought of you. So if the product is really bad, like you may not mention it. That's like my way of doing it if it's a small brand. I'm just not talking about that product because, as I said, I don't want to ruin them. But if it's like, it's okay, but it's not like really the best, maybe it has a flaw or two, then you kind of feel guilty to say something bad. That's a human thing. Nothing bad about that. That means that you have like emotions, you have emotional intelligence. You just feel bad to say something really bad about that product because you were gifted that. You feel like chosen to get that PR. So it's quite an interesting topic, but that's why you cannot trust beauty influencers 100%, because even if they are the most honest, the most trustworthy, there's always that human side of that maybe you feel guilty, maybe you're just too grateful to say anything bad, and so on and so on. And then I'm gonna also talk about some like friendships from before with the brands or certain beauty influencers. That's one thing that I noticed a lot, that if a friend releases a product and you can see like which beauty influencers are like vibing together, they are very good friends and they're just not gonna say anything bad about it, and that's also a human side of it, and it's not bad. If you're a viewer, you kind of, I guess, need to recognize that. They're just gonna avoid that confrontation. They just don't want to ruin the friend, but at the same time, they don't want to lie to their viewers. Or it's like an old relationship with a brand that you want to reconnect with that brand. So don't judge beauty influencers too harshly, because it's hard, it's not easy, you're not safe in this job, but you kind of can recognize which YouTubers or like other beauty influencers are kind people, and maybe you can recognize which one lies and which one doesn't care about you, because we have kind of we have some of really, really big beauty influencers who lie constantly, and they have been caught on those lies multiple times, and they still have so many people just viewing them and liking them. And then on the other side, you have small influencers that cannot live, out of just doing that. They need to have 1, 2, or maybe 3 jobs, and this is just a hobby. And then when they receive a certain product, maybe they tell a white lie, or they just don't say something that they maybe should say otherwise. So this is not like a huge criticism, it's just something that we need to be aware of. And also, I hate when I hear that they all lie, we all lie. It's not true to a certain degree. It's not as simple as they all lie. Everything they say is a lie. It's not like that at all. But yeah, that's it from my side. And if you remember anything else, then please comment down below. If you have your own experience with it, then please comment down below. So have a lovely day and see you in my next video. Bye.